All right, everybody, we'll be with you shortly. Let's just do a little social media check. Gentlemen, behind the scenes, your mics are muted right now as I get things started. But Pedro, I'm going to enable yours. Pedro, give everybody the social media rundown here.
Hey, guys. Hope everybody's doing well. So I want to, if you guys can, I mean, obviously we've been doing some night calls here, and it's been quite fun. I would like if everybody could just shout where they're coming from, like, subscribe, share. As you guys know, we're a small what do we call this? We have a small community, but we pack a mean punch, a really mean punch. We talk to a lot of important people, and we bring on a lot of good people who have good information, right? I.e., Caitlyn Jenner, Zach.
Caitlyn Jenner.
Or excuse me, not Caitlyn. Holy crap, bro! I mean, one for the algorithms. I mean, Caitlyn. Oh shoot.
Long.
Caitlyn Long with Custodia. Forgive me. And then, but if you guys can, real quick, just type where you guys are coming from. Tell us where you're watching us from, whether it's Zoom or whether it's through YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or excuse me, formerly known as Twitter, X. Shout out, say who you tell us what your favorite fruit is. Because right now I'm feeling fruity up in here, feeling sweet. Anyways, so and the markets have been moving, right? Like it is at a point where I was looking at the market yesterday, and I'm talking about the traditional markets, and I was looking at the bonds, and I was just so shocked to see like our one time period and cognizant, and I mean I look forward to telling my grandkids, oh, I remember when, and when Bitcoin was at 30,000 and Ethereum was at 2,100.
Right now they're like, man, now it's millions of dollars each.
Yeah. They'll be like, man, Grandpa, you bought in. That's why you have what you have. Better be thankful.
Alrighty, Pedro. Thanks for keeping us going there at the beginning. But as I always like to say, let's get this show started. Wrong one. There we go. All right, everybody. I love it. I love those little ditties that we put together here on the DYOR Media Network. Anyway, my name is Tom, otherwise known as Striking, here on the DYOR Media Network. I'm proud to host DYOR Live once again, ladies and gentlemen. We're doing an evening show here. It is November 16th, 2023. Got a good show for you today. We got Pedro Garcia, crypto chart analyst in the house. Woo, Pedro, go ahead. All right, we got a guest today, too. We haven't had a lot of guests lately. I've been moving around a lot. And we got, I'm going to say it correctly in English, but not for you Parisians, Florent, otherwise known as Flo, Thévenin. Thévenin, I tried, I failed. But anyway, he runs two companies called Blockflo Digital, but more importantly in Canada, he's a friend of mine through his company, Blockchain North, which is in the blockchain space, Canada's first blockchain media company, doing interviews and all great content since 2021 or so, something like that. But we got a great show for you tonight. It's the evening. We get a little bit more active than our morning shows. But more importantly, before we get to Flo later in the show, ladies and gentlemen, what is going on with Bitcoin? Pedro, what is going on from Bitcoin?
That is a good question. You know, Bitcoin has been really interesting. Like me and Tom keep bringing it up. Me and Striking, you know, it's the volume, and it is definitely kind of, you know, it's kind of setting. We're not seeing major volume if the market's moving up. And at the same point, I want to bring this up here real quick. As we're moving up, we are seeing some really strong movements, though. I mean, these aren't small movements. It just came from 25,000, and now we're all the way up at, you know, 37,000 here. We did hit our area that I talked about where we would see a sell-off. I expected us to come down to these lower levels of that 30,000 and 24,000, but we hit it. We sold off. We hit it again. We saw another sell-off. And we're playing more off of that 8 moving average on the weekly and that 20 period moving average on the daily here. So it's going to be really interesting. We did pierce this right here. As you guys can see, we pierced this moving average here, that 20 period moving average.
Which day moving average was that? Sorry, Pedro.
No, it's the 20 period moving average. You see, it's the orange one we see right here.
Gotcha.
All right. And now the fact that we did pierce that, and it is showing, that does mean it shows weakness. We haven't really gotten far into the zone as I'm bringing up right here. So it's really interesting to see what's going to happen. Again, the volume here is not exceptional. Like, you know, like it's not like we're seeing a ton of huge plays here. And the reason why I bring this up is because right now we've seen with Ethereum, right, that Ethereum has some major volume come in. I talked about this the last time we were talking, that I was actually really impressed to see the amount of volume stepping into Ethereum. And I was like, wow. And then I remembered, guess what just happened? We had the Ethereum ETF that was brought up, and now we have that going. And that was BlackRock's. So it's something that we're seeing a lot of play going on. And when that happens, money starts to FOMO into the cryptocurrencies. Every time we start talking about, you know, last time that we had a huge boost in price, right, was when we saw the Bitcoin potential ETF come through and set everything up, the actual spot coin itself. And obviously that was shot down, but that was back here in April, as well as in right here in September. There was other stuff going on here. So we saw a big push, and it was something similar. Now, I want to point out here, though, that Ethereum is seeing a lot of the people buying, and what we're seeing in the market of hitting the zone and coming back out, and again, finding support on that 20 with real volume, might I add. So this is where we're starting to see maybe a play where we're seeing, why am I forgetting the word again? Tom, arbitrage. No. All right, we're seeing an arbitrage play. Holy moly. For whatever reason, today I'm having the word arbitrage slip my brain. Forgive me, my peoples. But in the same sense, as we're seeing the difference between Bitcoin as well as Ethereum, and we're seeing some real volume come in here. So I feel like there is almost a manipulation play here that the institutions are definitely playing. They see that people want to get into the market and be a part of the Ethereum ETF kicking in. And additionally to that, we know that when that happens, we see a funnel of money coming into the actual market. So I do think that we're seeing a play here where people are doing some arbitrage between the two, and basically just trying to make some cash, quick money, right? And we need a lot of big traders. You know, they'll drop in a couple $100 million, potentially $2 or $3, $4 billion, so that they can get a 4%, 5% off of a large amount of cash. So a lot of times we see that. So I want to add that point here is that I think the reason why we're seeing things continually push up in Bitcoin is because of the arbitrage aspect behind it, where there's a good potential of it to shoot up, and then we're seeing volume come in and the market move in with it. So that's where I'm seeing what's happening potentially. Again, I don't want to bring this up, that we still have a large area of resistance sitting between that 40,000, 37,000 on Bitcoin. I do see us coming back down to that 31,000 to 30,000 area. It is one of those things, like I said, we went up without any strong volume here with Bitcoin. So I feel like it's a rope-a-dope going on here within Bitcoin. Within Ethereum, there is real, exactly. There is real, there's real volume coming in. And we're seeing it step in at these levels where we're at a kind of a high. And so
Right.
I think where this is coming from is really with the ETF that is coming to market here. So it's going to be really interesting to see how Bitcoin and Ethereum kick in and start to play against each other. Yeah, that's about it.
Pedro,
What are your thoughts?
as the title of the show says today, Bitcoin's bringing us pain and joy because of the volatility. Now, that's two-sided. One, we've been suffering. If you go out through the past few months, there was a long period in between 24 and 26,000 that it just didn't break out of the summer doldrums or something like that, wasn't much volatility. So people were complaining about that. But as and then other people, as the volatility stayed kind of level, the institutional people went, hey, it's not so volatile. This is a good thing. Maybe we can get in it. They put in a position. We saw the options market kind of explode. So obviously people were hedging their either their longs or their shorts. And now that the volatility is returning, which makes the traders happy because volatility doesn't matter if it goes up or down as long as it does something. But that makes the institutions wary because they see the big FOMO pump and they're like, wait a minute, what is this just going to keep going up in a bull market, or are we going to see the dumpage happen? And I think that seems to be and the reason I say that is because I like to talk fundamentals against your technical charts, and I think the psychology of this may be that we might be in for a nice dump off here because when the markets get too volatile, the institutions that came in that were on the edge of coming in, their risk profile just went up, and so they're like, that's too much risk, we got to get out now. What are your thoughts on that?
It's actually a good point to bring up. The fact is that those institutions need to have more of a steady, higher highs, higher lows. And we need to see this type of market, a 1 or 2, 12% movement. This is primarily maybe being built for alpha for them. I don't see them putting the rest of their portfolio and, betting on red over here. But I do think that aspect of it fluctuating between 30,000 and 20,000 potentially could be an area for them as it comes back down to be able to rebuild that position originally. I know that, MicroStrategy's cost base is around that 25,000, and we didn't see it dip below that 25,000 area here.
I think sorry to interrupt. I think they've got their cost bases up to 29,000 now. I think with that last
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, I think they moved it up a little bit. I only say that because I read an article. I don't know if the article's correct or not, but
yeah, either way,
I was just talking with Michael Saylor last week, and so he was giving me his cost basis.
I was gonna say, man, that's a big buy. But he's the, he buys in. You said he's the third biggest buyer, right? In BTC, correct?
Yeah, he's the third or fourth, something right in there. I think it's Binance and then Grayscale, U.S. government, and then I think Michael Saylor's right under the U.S. government before it goes into Robinhood and a couple other large ones.
Well, what I find interesting more than anything, he's going to be able to play a great arbitrage where he's going to be able to give people, coins as it starts to move higher. And him literally being able to partition parts of Bitcoin from major institutions is, I think, a big selling point for him to keep buying. Because even at 30,000, which we all know that that's a very small increment in compared to, let's say, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years from now. Where we potentially could see, a $1 to $2 million Bitcoin, which is, I know it sounds, it's crazy, but 40 years from now,
not even Friday yet, and I'm going, woo, yeah, $1 million,
woo, hallelujah. But the reality is that he's still sitting pretty. That would be a 30x, and from a traditional standpoint, 30x is an extreme great gain over over a period of 20-30 years,
right?
So it's one of those things. Now, from from a cryptocurrency standpoint, it's more of a only 30x.
Right, I know. That's what I
right.
was just. That's it. 30x. Sheesh. Man, I'm investing
I know, right?
in Pepe Drunken Doge. Yeah, come on, man.
Pepin Drunken Droge. Yes. Pepin Drunk. Peppy crappin'.
Hey, on Rugs
Jumpin',
Ruined and
hallelujah.
Wrecked,
Yeah.
I reviewed a project called Uncle Doge once, and it was, of course, a rug pull, and that's why it was on Wrecked. And then a couple of weeks later, the same developers, or at least that we could tell from the blockchain, launched Drunken Uncle Doge, and the logo was just a dog with a gun and a beer and and a black eye and stuff like that. I'm like, and this is in 2021. And I'm like, what's up with this meme coin market? It's kind of shady, Drunken.
I know, right? I know. But I mean, there are people who became I know a kid who literally was a part of my community. I was shocked. The kid literally turned a couple $100 into a couple $1,000,000.
Stop! I don't want to hear it. No,
dude,
no.
I'm serious.
Unlike my $2,000 that turned into zero.
He just got lucky. The thing is like he threw a couple hundred and got a couple thousand. Those couple thousand he threw into a few other ones. And this is when, dude, you could crap on something, it would go up. I mean, it literally, these, the average.
This is the quality of show that you've gotten yourself into here.
But I mean, but the reality is during that time, the ICO phase, or ICO craze, which I believe we are going to see another one. I mean, we see Arbitrum, a lot of the coins being launched on that are starting to really skyrocket. They're doing 3 to 5x right at launch, and we still haven't really hit the peak and push of a Bitcoin rally here. So this is really interesting to see on a lot of these other blockchains that other altcoins are being created here, or tokens, and really like they're already starting to do some big moves. So when it comes back again, right, and we start to see real volume step into the industry again, like we see every 4 years, sure enough, I just don't see it not exploding.
Right.
Just like we saw, and we're going to see another ICO craze again, just because that's just the nature of the beast here.
All right. Well, what are we saying here? It's Thursday night.
Yeah.
What are people, when they wake up Sunday morning and trying not to pay attention to crypto, what are they going to see for Bitcoin? Are we going to go bounce off that resistance, or are we going to blast through it?
Yep. Honestly, I do see us selling off here. As you can see here, even on these days that were small, right? As you can see here, these days here were smaller than average, right? And you see that we had a pretty decent size of sellers stepping in, dropping it down. And on this big green day, we don't see a lot of volume. I was hoping to see more of a big volume, like at least something substantial at this level here. And we didn't really even see that. So this is why I think we will see a sell-off down into these lower levels. And if that happens, we should then see it come back down. Keyword should, that 30 to 29,000 mark, and then see it potentially go sideways for a minute. That is, that's more my prediction here.
All right, you heard it, ladies and gentlemen, from the charts into Pedro's fingertips of his mouse all the way into our show and into your ears. So you are a smarter person today. As always, this is not financial advice. This is for education purposes only. I forgot to put the scroller up, but since I said this anyway, that is our get out of jail free clause. Oh,
yes. Only this is free education. This is educational.
The police are already coming to get me.
I know, right? We got to run. Let's go. We got to go.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Pedro, thank you very much for your analysis, and stick around. We'll have our guest on in a few minutes. But ladies and gentlemen, as I do it, I like to take this time real quick to talk about our channel sponsor, Auditchain, here over my shoulder. And as I always say, instead of listening to me pontificate about them, why don't you listen to me pontificate about them?
Most of you know that crypto exchanges have been taking a beating about transparency, and many groups out there are trying to solve that. But Auditchain has already done that. Auditchain's protocols and network of validators can mathematically prove that a company's entire financial state, not just proof of reserves, but a proof of state, and whether or not that company is providing accurate reporting and information to the respective government regulators and to the public. Seriously, you and I can check crypto companies and traditional companies financial reports for transparency and accuracy using a logic and reasoning engine called Pacioli that records its output where? On the blockchain. Seriously, ladies and gentlemen, blockchain technology is now able to be used to check on traditional companies. Behind me is a list of companies that comprise the S&P 500, S&P 100. In essence, the largest US companies by size. More than one quarter, 29 out of 100, have problems with their reports. Remember, accounting and other corporate systems are garbage in and garbage out. So if there are problems with the data out for these companies, in red here, what does that mean? That's right, ladies and gentlemen. There are problems with the data going in. And this was figured out not by accounting or auditing firms and fleets of consultants. This was compiled and reported on by Auditchain's Pacioli validating nodes and took only 5 minutes. It's revolutionary and it's a disruptor technology. Auditchain.
You know, my whole intro there, the mic was off. I just...
Well, we can hear you now, right?
I know. Well, you could have heard me anyway, but it wasn't gone. Anyway, I took that long time, ladies and gentlemen, to say that going through the time I've spent in Ottawa, in Canada. As I say, Mrs. Striking lives in Canada, so I spent a lot of time there. And to sum things up, what I had previously said for 5 minutes a minute ago, is that you get to know the people in the industry you're working in. And I've spent a lot of time in the cryptoverse, and I've come across good people in that. And one of those is this gentleman here, Florent Thévenin, otherwise known as Flo, from Blockchain North. And he's an entrepreneur. And the topic of today's discussion is not just being an entrepreneur in the crypto land, but it's also, if you are an entrepreneur in the crypto land, what does that involve? And so, Flo, first question I like to bring up from people is, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here, Tom. Thank you for this warm introduction. Thanks for having me. It was indeed very nice to connect with you at Futurist last August. And for the audience, the interviewee that you helped me with is none other than Charles Hoskinson. And won't go into the details, but I was very happy that you were there. And so there we go. We are friends now. I'm great. How are you?
It was a great interview, and I'm glad you got it. But as we get into the topic today here, obviously we want to hear about the various companies that you founded and the entrepreneurial spirit that you're bringing to the Canadian blockchain industry. But I always have to ask my guests this first question, and I don't try not to prepare him with it. And if you watch my show, then you know. But
I'm unprepared.
What was your first experience with crypto when you first said, "Wait, what?" What was your first? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I feel like it came in stages, but just not to go long, I would say that an interview I did with Jim Harris, who's interestingly the former head of the Green Party here in Canada, about 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago. And he's become like a disruptive innovation expert. He tours, does a lot of conferences, including in the US, of course. And he's just such a compelling speaker that, you know, when he started talking about blockchain and what it's going to do, and it's going to touch everything, and it's a revolution, and you know, he kind of had me. And then from there, you know, kind of a couple of touch points. And I would say that the biggest milestone for me was simply buying Bitcoin. And I think I bought $20 and then 200, you know, and like most people, you know, I've seen some ups and downs. But I think the moment you commit, the moment you put skin in the game, then, yeah, you're going to pay attention more. So that was it.
And then you let it ride up to $400, and you said, "Wow, I made 100%." You sold it, and now it's worth $35,000. Right?
No, I said I put in $200. It was more expensive than that.
well, that's that. And I tend to ask, since the Friday show or the evening shows are not as serious as the morning shows, so I like to say, have you ever been in a project that's been rug pulled?
You know what? I haven't.
You're
Although
only the second guest
lately
that
I did buy an ETF in Canada that was terminated. I do hear I'm going to get my money back, but no, not in crypto. No, I'm not that risk. I mean, I'm really quite risk averse. Really, I'm mostly investing in the bigger projects.
Yet here we are talking to you, claiming to be risk averse. Yet you're in an industry, covering an industry that's high risk, and B, you're an entrepreneur. So that it's an interesting thing, but I guess what you're telling me is you're taking a risk in a new industry, but you're keeping your money in your pocket.
Yeah, no. My money is invested for sure. I guess what I mean is, look, risk is very much perception. And so for me, the industry as a whole is not going anywhere. No question about it. I mean, it's obvious by now. It is going to disrupt almost everything. No one knows exactly at what pace and under what conditions. But within blockchain, I think most people also know by now that, 99% or so of projects are, and maybe it's 97, maybe it's 92, but are just rug pulls or at very best just meme coins. In that I'm more into the use cases and frankly Bitcoin. Bitcoin is just what is it? 14 years in, it remains the 1,000-pound gorilla here.
That's
and
true.
And it's doing more than people thought it was. Right, in many ways. Right, we're talking about NFTs now.
And ordinals and that whole thing, and just the amount of projects that it spawned off of it. An entire industry. Anyway,
and the very fact that it's not being disrupted despite there being 20,000 or 30,000 other cryptos, because you sometimes hear people say, "Oh, yeah, but why couldn't something else come and just wipe Bitcoin away?" Well, it hasn't, and there are reasons for that, right? So.
Yeah, shh.
Don't tell everybody.
Don't play any developers on that one. Anyway, so as we all know, you get to a point in your life where you've done many things, and you got to a point where you said, "Hey, wait a minute! I like talking to people. I like creating content, and so I'm going to create a company that goes out and interviews people and gathers information about the digital asset industry." What was your mindset when you said, I want to be an entrepreneur, but I want to do that and cover this amazing industry? How'd you get into it? What made you decide to do that?
I love that. I love that question, and part of my answer is what you said just before I got on, which was, I do this to learn. I do this to educate myself. So there is definitely a sort of a selfish. I was going to say self-centered, which is that in the worst case, even if I become rich and famous and not necessarily my goals, but even if I don't succeed beyond measure, I will have learned something. So that's a very, very big aspect of it. I've always been curious, and I've only been in this space for about 3 years, so I'm by no means a true OG. Although I guess the longer I say that, I'll get to a point where I'll fall within the people who were within it, or in it, within the first 10 or 11 years. But no, ultimately, it's I'm a content guy. I've been doing media projects globally for the last 15 years, and this was an opportunity. I just thought, really, I had this realization that Canada did not have a media industry focused on blockchain, which means that in very traditional Canadian fashion, we only follow American content, and it's probably some of the best content out there. However, it's not there to serve Canada and Canadian entrepreneurs and Canadian communities. So I thought we need to have our own space. We're the birthplace of Ethereum. You've heard that over and over again. Many innovations come from Canada. I'm not going to say Canada is the leader. I'm going to say it's a leader in this big space, and I felt it deserved its own media company. And so I'm going to try, and I'm still very much trying to create it.
Well, that's good. As I've witnessed, you rebranded it from honestly, I don't remember the
Crypto
name.
News Canada.
Crypto News Canada.
A year ago.
Right. And now Blockchain North. How has the transition gone? Well, has social media taken it? Is your base growing?
Well, it's all relative, on social media. Of course, I'm not. Of course, I am tracking the numbers, and we still have a long way to go. We're a year and a half old, like more or less. So that's what I consider our journey. So it's still very early days. Although in crypto, of course, it's still a good amount of time. No, the rebrand was very simple. Crypto was just had a terrible rep last year. Luna, Voyager, Celsius, it all, and of course FTX. And then news, we just didn't want to pigeonhole ourselves to only being about news 24/7. I have a personal life. I want my team to have a personal life, and so I do follow the news. I'm a kind of a news junkie, but not 24/7, not 7 days a week. And then Canada, it was the most difficult word to get rid of, but I did not want our content to be limited or branded as only for Canadians. Yes, we're Canadian. We're very Canadian. There's a maple leaf in our logo. Blockchain North, we the North. If you follow basketball sports, you'll know that that's a big symbol. But I would say that, from the many people we've gotten to interview, including Charles Hoskinson, which is incredible, Anthony, I'm going to blank out now.
One of the founders of Ethereum, Anthony. I can't say his last name.
Yeah,
or at least I can't recall it. Yeah, right. That's it. You got it.
Yeah, you do your podcast at 8:30 p.m. live. Of course, I stumble on some of my words. But long story short, I think that the brand and the design of the logo are a very big part of our company today. I hear it all the time. People love the logo, love the name. So yeah, from now on, let's build on top of it.
So I've run into you at in Toronto at the blockchain futurist convention, and recently you were in Ottawa covering an event there, kind of unrelated to digital assets, and then also another one, the Web3 North one, and you're also, I believe, you're helping an author. You're covering an author that is getting his book out. Tell me about those events and how Blockchain North got the word out about them. There we go. Oh, he's ready with it. Now this guy is prepared.
Well, I didn't prepare. It's just been behind me ever since I got the book maybe a month ago or something like that. Just too busy to get into it right now. Have read his first book, Blockchain Revolution. Really, really incredible. Sorry. So, what is your question about the events? I got caught up.
My question was that I was just looking for a good summary of there and I guess
Yeah.
I'll refine it into the events that happen in Canada. Are you seeing the success at them that we expect from our growing industry?
No, absolutely not. I think, look, again, my journey in this space, and especially with Blockchain North, is a year and a half, max 2 years, depending where you started. And so, of course, that's been the depth of the crypto winter. I'm an optimist. So for me, I mean, looking at the numbers on Bitcoin as the proxy, this year is extremely encouraging. But we are still at roughly half what it was all-time high almost exactly 2 years ago. So there's two ways to look at it. For me, it's all very positive, but it's not positive in a sort of, sell your house, put everything on Doge, and you're going to go to the moon type of way. I think it's more, people are building. That's what I hear. Like, I've been to quite a few conferences in the last year and a half, and I'm always amazed by how many people are active in the space, how many people are building, are innovating, and just the resiliency of people in this space that continue to believe despite the headwinds. The headwinds have been incredible. I mean, whether it be regulatory, whether it be market sentiment, this Globe and Mail article, that's one of our biggest newspapers here, just a week ago was titled something like, "Oh, people have forgotten about crypto," and it's probably true, but I think they're going to remember very quickly.
I think
when it
just
comes
certain
back.
people in the government have forgotten about it, but others will bring it back to haunt them. That's for sure. I would have to say
and
that.
money talks,
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
The moment. No, I was just going to say, and money talks. The moment the market comes back roaring, watch what will happen then. Already we're seeing NFTs, which were said to be dead and completely useless, coming back pretty strongly. So, I'm extremely bullish, especially for the next 6 months.
Well, I have to say that the topic of being an entrepreneur, when you start your business and you try to measure success, unless you're one of the lucky guys that founded Apple Computer in his garage or came up with a search algorithm right when the internet started, everybody, or I should say, nobody meets their goal when starting their company. I've started a few companies, and the 5-year plan was always like, at year 1, you're like, well, let's rip that up, and start over again. But I, from an independent point of view, but kind of in the industry, I would argue against that you're doing better than you think you are. And the reason is that you've gotten your name out quite well. You're associated with some good conferences and getting the word out that your group is there to cover them, get the word out and help people and advocate on behalf of the clients you work with. And so I think that's doing a good thing. And that's, it's what I try to do here. You just wish that someone would come by and say, we want to hire you for $1 million yearly event to put everything together. And so, we all wish for the big contract, but we all know it's blood and sweat.
Yeah, of course it is. And I agree so much with what you said. In fact, it was very useful for you to remind me, because you get caught up and you forget some of the fundamental, aspects of entrepreneurship. It's hard. Most businesses fail in their first year. Within 5 years, I think only 10% are still around. So, I consider myself lucky to be around. And it's cliche to say, but it of course I initiated. Of course I have a big role to play in the company. But the people around me, and of course my team, but not just the team, the people that, like you say, hey, you want to come and cover my event? Sure. Never heard of you. You don't necessarily have millions of followers, but yes, come. I mean, all these people are opening these little doors for you and allowing you to kind of spread your tentacles. I think the $1 million for whatever covering my event next year type of scenario can still happen. I think entrepreneurship is pushing your luck, right? Being there, being present, setting yourself up. And if someone calls me next year and says 100,000 to cover our event, that's fantastic. I'll tell you very quick little story.
I'm in. Let me have it.
Really public. Yeah, I mean, so one of the people we interviewed at the Blockchain Futurist Conference in Toronto in August was the founder and CEO of Paris Blockchain Week. Now, I'm from Paris originally, and I'd never heard of Paris Blockchain Week, but I understand it, of course, right away. And I'm interviewing the guy, and I'm like, so just paint a picture for me. I just, can't visualize it. What does it look like? He's like, it's a week. It's at the Louvre Museum, and there's 10,000 people. And I'm like, whoa. That is just like, it's twice futurist. It's at the Louvre Museum. I mean, And of course, for me, growing up in Paris, going to the Louvre as a kid, and it's kind of like, wow, that's awesome. And I said, I'd love to be there. I'd love to participate with Blockchain North. And he said, sure, like write me an email. And we are, I think I can say it. I mean, we basically put pen to paper a few days ago that we will be a media partner of that event. And that for me is completely surreal, right? It's like I've gone full circle. I'm from France. I've been in Canada for 10 years. I meet the guy from France who's leading the chart, in a much bigger way than I am, but in the same industry as I am in Canada. And if things go well, I will likely go there with my team and shoot some interviews there. And I mean, that's that $1 million example in a non-monetary kind of way, So.
Well, I have to say, obviously, I wish you success with that. And that's the best thing about these events is you go and it's networking and you meet the right people and you grow your base. But Blockchain North isn't the only thing you got going on. You've got a company that has your name in it too. You've co-opted the blockchain name, and you have a company now called BlockFlo Digital. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, actually, so it's funny. Two things. One is, first, we just rebranded. We had a really long name, and it ended up being an acronym, but the acronym didn't sound great. So long story short, we want to rebrand. And also, I think it's kind of good for the life cycle of a business to kind of reinvent itself a bit, reposition. And so 2 years ago, before I started Blockchain North, the first company I started was a digital marketing business because I've been doing a lot of content and built my own presence on social and like being on social. I'm social in the real world and I like being social online, which to me are kind of one and the same. And so I started the digital marketing business servicing a lot of leaders because I've interviewed a lot of leaders in my past job in various industries and their organizations. And so we were doing pretty traditional digital marketing, but of course, blockchain very quickly became an important part of our, let's say, client network. Right. And so that's BlockFlo Digital. The name didn't include a nod to blockchain until now. We thought we should put it in, but in a way that doesn't necessarily say blockchain or crypto. It's just a little shorter, so that we could still also service clients outside of blockchain because we still have those. Like you mentioned, we were at an event last week, and my name. I mean, it wasn't my idea. My team was like, "Why don't we put your name in there? It would be fun." It's a name that's playful, like Flow. I mean,
right? It works. I'll tell you, it works. It works.
Yeah, and it's my name, so for me it's kind of funny. But and then digital, we wanted to say digital marketing, but we thought BlockFlo Digital Marketing is too long. We wanted, short. We saw the URL blockflow.ca was available. We were like, okay, so the company's BlockFlo or BlockFlo Digital. And right now we're a digital marketing business that has expanded. So we do a lot of things. The wildest thing we do now is we write white papers. I don't do it myself, but I have an expert on my team who just wrote a very successful one, and he has written 14 before that. So he's very experienced, tokenomics, everything. So that's a service that we offer that I never imagined 2 years ago I would ever offer. But we also do traditional social media. We help people on Telegram, Discord. We do video interviews for people. So, if people want their own video of their CEO talking about their value proposition, or if they want us to follow them at an event, we can do that. And a lot of writing, basically a lot of copywriting and a lot of content production and social media stuff.
Well, I'm just dropping your website into the comments here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, I dropped them onto the on screen there. Blockflow.ca. Ladies and gentlemen,
so we're pretty. Just add one more thing is that we're pretty unique in that sense. When people ask me to introduce what we do, it's like there's two sides to our business, right? We are a digital marketing company, mostly focused on Canada, but we have had American clients, for example. I think they like the Canadian dollar on our quote.
Yeah,
and then we have our own new media company in the blockchain space, and that makes us completely unique in Canada because we have an avenue where we can distribute content, as well as producing content for others. So,
well, as someone that also produces content, it's amazing now how when you do it regularly, all of a sudden you look back and you're like, your computer says, "Oh, your hard drive's full," and you're like, "It can't be full. How can it be full?" And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I have hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of content. And you're like, now what do I do with this? Have you looked into any of those new services, that the AI services that aggregate your stuff and try to spit out?
I just learned it from you, Tom. So thanks for the tip. And it's funny, again, your timing is impeccable, because just last week at this event we were at in Ottawa, we were running into an issue because I had probably 300 gigs of space on my computer, and I thought that's plenty. Told my video guy, just shove it all on my computer so we don't have to like transfer it. And he's like, oh, you need to make some space. Your computer's full. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, there's 400 gigs of video. Like,
I know that. I know the feeling. But I just tried one of those services that I'll take my long form videos and upload it to it, and it makes a bunch of TikTok and short things out of it, and it tries to use AI to figure it out. Now, I did it with my show called Rugged, Ruined, and Wrecked, which is, it's all bad news. And so I go through projects. Like the one example I used was a Ponzi scheme, in which I said, look, they promised you all this interest rates and all these big money, and in the end, it didn't work out so well. And the AI gave me back all positive things and like videos of me promoting it, and I was like,
oh no!
I was like, I hope that doesn't get published anywhere.
Now you're shilling bad news.
Right. Let's see, what is a comment from the crowd here? Love that segment. It was one of our fans of Rugged, Ruined, and Wrecked there. Pedro says, you rock, guys. Pedro, thanks for coming back and commenting. Appreciate it. Hope everything is going well for you while we still hear and joke about it. Now, Flo, I know you've lived in different parts of the world, and in the East and the West and the North and the South, all over the place. And in Canada here, you're an entrepreneur. You're involved in the industry that is basically 100% entrepreneurs. How does Canada compare to the other countries that you've been in as far as the entrepreneurial spirit?
Okay, I thought you were going to ask me about crypto, and I was going to say my journey started in Canada, and that's the only place I've mostly lived in since I started. That's a good question, entrepreneur. Well, it would, I guess I would have to start with some comparisons. I mean, I would say compared to the vast majority of the world, Canadian entrepreneurs and business leaders, and I've interviewed many, including some huge ones, are approachable, friendly, for the most part, honest, reliable. Now, they're not perfect, but they're those qualities that are maybe not the sexiest or, the ones that we're going to make a Wolf of Wall Street movie around. But I've really appreciated that. I've really felt that. And where I come from in France, love my country, but they always say, things are more vertical, things are more hierarchy, and,
right.
You're not just going to walk into the office of a big CEO of a stock listed company in France. In Canada, very different. So that would be the first thing I would say about Canada. And I think in the States, that's pretty known, that Canadians are friendly and nice. And I really don't want to be cynical when I say this. I mean, it is a wonderful thing. We need more of it. On the less good side of things, I would say, and that's what I've been hearing since I'm in Canada for 11 years, by comparison to the US now, maybe we're even friendlier. I think Americans are very friendly in general. But I think the one thing we would say we're less good. You're the nicest guy in the world, man. One of the things we're maybe less good at when it comes to entrepreneurship is being a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more, blowing our own horn,
right?
A little bit more ambitious as well. That's one thing. As you said, I've lived around the world. Canada was supposed to just be an nth project for me, and I've been there 10 years. But it sometimes frustrates me a little bit that, the world is Canada. It's Canada and the U.S. If you're lucky, it's Canada and the U.S. and Mexico. But, there is a bit of a lack of global thinking. And I think thinking big, being more aggressive, and thinking global, I mean, those two things kind of go hand in hand from my point of view. But I just wrap up by saying that one of my favorite expressions is when you pick up a stick, you pick up both ends, which means that friendly and aggressive don't really go together, right? So you can't really have both, right? That's what I would say.
Well, I gotta go through these shows. Very rarely do I get little nuggets of wisdom like that. You pick up the stick and you get both ends of it. It's like, learn something new every day. I parrot your comment, or I would agree with that. When I came to Canada, I was working in the U.S. for a long time, most of my life, but I had moved to Dubai to consult for a company there, and they transferred me to Canada. And while I had customers in Canada forever, I had never worked there and needed to kind of run a business. When I got there, people are like, "Oh, it's just, I had to meet people in the government because that's who we were selling to." And they're like, "Just call them." And I'm like, after working in the U.S. and in the UAE, I'm like, you don't just call anyone in the government. You have to get a lobbyist. You have to donate to people's campaigns. You have to, get vetted by staff and all this type of stuff. And I was selling products to the military, and they're like, "No, just call this guy. He's the head of the whole thing for the military." And I was like,
Wow.
"Yeah, sure, I'll just call him." Anyway, I looked his number up, called him up. He answers his own phone, and he's like, "Brigadier General, blah blah blah. How can I help you?" I'm like, "What?"
Wow.
Yeah. And I said, "Hi, my name is Tom. I'm new in town, blah, blah, blah." And he's like, "Well, this is what I do." He's like, "Well, I can't possibly help you with procurement. We have a whole, legal thing for that." He said, "But I'd love to meet you and hear about your products." He literally gave me 5 minutes and said, "Come on." I'm like, man, I love this Canada
huge.
here. If I went to the swamp in Washington, D.C., every time I got there, you spend 3 days just trying to figure out your hotel and taxi and going from this meeting to that meeting. Hopefully you'll get to meet someone important that didn't cancel at the last minute. And I was like, wow, this is great. And then as I got to know the entrepreneurial game here in Canada, and as I say, Mrs. Striking is a government lobbyist, but also she consults for small companies. And one of her clients is a business called a nonprofit called Startup Canada, and Startup Canada advocates on behalf of entrepreneurs, startups, small businesses, and all that type of stuff.
Kayla Isabel.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
I've interviewed her.
And they do a bang up job, and I've done a couple of events for them. They're live streaming, behind the scenes type stuff, and it took me into the statistics level of saying, all right, I needed to help Mrs. Striking do some things, and then in order to understand how startup worked better for their live streams, I did some research, and I was amazed at the percentage of entrepreneurial jobs created in Canada, and it was way more as a percentage of the population than in the U.S. And all that, and not just like mom's knitting shop as an entrepreneur, but actual CRA registered businesses. And I was like, no wonder the government puts so much money into funding this stuff, because they're generating the jobs and a huge amount of the GDP. And so when I was looking at the confluence of digital assets and entrepreneurial, I'm like, that's a good conversation to have, because as the whole digital economy expands, and the entrepreneurs get into that, it's gonna add to the GDP and the wealth of the nation, is about as fast as discovering gold did, probably, or oil. That's all we got to do is nurture it. Just got to nurture it.
My main concern is that Canada is really good at innovating. Excuse me, at innovating. Like you said, the creation of company. We're probably in the top 10 in the world or something like that. But the problem is the IP very often doesn't stay in Canada. A lot of our companies get bought out, and often by American companies. So that's just a small thing, excuse me, that I wish was a little bit different, that we could, grow and stay Canadian.
I'm gonna die on
the show, I promise.
I have, let's see if this works right. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it, but I have a video of you interviewing at the Blockchain North conference, and I just put that up to show our viewers kind of the awesomeness of what you do live on scene and stuff like that, and coming up with good guests and a good backdrop in a situation like that. I'm trying to do something similar live, but when you're a one-man show doing it live, you blow those mic on and off buttons here and there, and you make another couple of mistakes. But
I mean, I don't do any of what I do on my own, and that setup, that was our best gig to date. It wasn't cheap, I'll be honest, so I can't say that it was necessarily financially the best decision.
But
longer
that's
term,
what you do, though. You invest in your business, and that's what pays off.
That's it. You show the potential. So I think I literally just swallowed an entire tea leaf at the bottom of my cup, and you almost lost me there, but I'm back. By the way, I have to ask you one question before we go, because I know these things go really quickly. Either I'm extremely pale, or you just come back from a Caribbean holiday.
Well, I would love to say that I have a Caribbean holiday, but I have these light buttons here that I also didn't set up right. I have. I mean, this looks like this really fancy studio, but everyone knows it's my loft here, and I have all these bright lights and studio lights. But over here, I have some old school kitchen lights that are the yellow reddish light, the old lights. And when you leave them on, they cast a little reddish glow. And of course, I could go fix it, but I was like, all right, I already missed a mic intro earlier. And so
I love it. I think it looks like you just literally got off the plane. You got a little bit of a sunburn, but
I still got my sunglasses on my head.
I'm so pale.
Well, I can probably fix that too, but I just didn't take the time to do it. That's what I was. I guess that's what I was impressed about when I showed up at the blockchain futurist convention. And I was like, and you had people helping you. And I'm like, he has people? I'm like, who in this business has people working for them? This is fantastic.
Well, that was my entire team, all 4 or 5 of us, I forget. But there's a couple of freelancers hired as well to help on that day. But when are you next coming to Canada? Tell us about your plans in Canada.
I plan on being in Toronto for the Canadian Blockchain Consortium event.
See you there.
All right, I'll see you there. I'm not coming to work it. All my gear is in Ottawa and in here. I didn't leave a stash in Toronto. And I'm certainly not going to fly with any of this stuff. Although if I drive, I might bring a camera or two to talk to people. I would love to. I like to do while you do the focus on the interviews and that type of stuff. I like to do a live show, and so at all these events, I always plan on doing doing a live show and having a few guests from it. But it never works out just because of the logistics involved of doing a live show, having the right internet and all that. But I'll be back in Canada for that.
I see a business opportunity right there, Tom. First of all, really glad that we'll get to see each other in real life in 2.5 weeks. We'll be there too. And I see an opportunity there. I don't know if your podcast is the right place to discuss it. Probably not. But, we don't do live. You do live. We do, maybe like a little bit more setup in real life interviews. So that could be, we could maybe help each other. So let's talk offline.
Sure. Glad to do that. Just had a comment that I didn't vet before putting on the screen. That while my show is called DYOR Live, it has nothing to do with any tokens called DYOR trading tokens. In the past, I represented one, but since I took my show into the professional level, we're not associated with the token or anything like that. So sometimes the screen I have over here, like if you could see this number of screens I have is crazy. But the screen I have my comments on over here, I just rearranged it, and it's just outside my vision. It's right in that space between close and far, which as you get older, it's like, ooh, how is that? And so I didn't vet the comments as they come up, so I got to look over at this screen and say, oh, Pedro, yes.
That's cool. That's cool. No, I'd love to see that set up in person. Sounds awesome.
Well, I have the same thing in Ottawa too, at both places, and every time I go back and forth, when you get something set up right, it works, and as soon as you don't pay attention to it a little bit, an upgrade happens, and then it doesn't work, and then you go from one place to the other, and it's slightly different. A is B, and B is C, and
oh my God, yeah.
So I'm very famous for blowing the queues and all that type of stuff because of the setup, and it's a part of my shtick and all that. I'm like, I blew that again. But I enjoy the live shows, and I enjoyed having you on, Flo. It was really good to talk to you in this atmosphere, in this show, and learn more about where you came from and what's driving you to keep at it in Canada with the media and trying to grow the business and hopefully bring it global to Paris next year in 2024. And then you don't have the blockchain north. You better go register that domain. Blockchain. Oh, don't want that. don't want anyone to go do that.
It's been a pleasure. I really enjoyed chatting with you. You really make it effortless, and that's nice. I'm honored when I look at some of the people you've interviewed before me. I'm definitely humbled, and we've got a lot of things going on with Blockchain North. I mean, this Paris is one crazy project that we're working on, but lots of new things. We're gonna relaunched the site. We're launching a newsletter in January, very Canadian-centric, really kind of sharing and aggregating the news, the events, the communities, what's happening in Canada, because, as I said, not a lot of people that are really doing that right now. And lots of new events partnerships, new content styles, and perhaps even some guest hosts, because I can't do it all myself, and it'd be great to have some people maybe like you, who have a different set of knowledge and experience. So
I just remember.
Thanks again a lot for having me.
Since I blew the intro, I forgot to put your lower third up, so I just did that. So now we can get good social media captures with the lower third up.
No problem. And it's Blockchain North, just for people who weren't reading it, because I think it says Block C.
Oh, come on. I didn't get it wrong, did I? Yeah, I forgot to finish typing it. See? This is what happens when you're a one-man show. I need a team. I need a Blockchain North team
part of the charm.
To back me up. One day I'll get that. I'll have sponsors that grow with my viewership and allow that to happen. But until then, Flo, thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate it. We'll hook up soon in Toronto and create some good content.
Thank you very much. See you in 2.5 weeks, my friend. Keep being awesome.
All right. Keep being awesome. You can't get a better honor than that. Flo, thank you very much for coming on board the show here to talk about this. Ladies and gentlemen, it's that time. It's the end of the show here. We had a good viewership today. We had good guests. We've got some good comments coming across Canada and the U.S. We've got the general. Let's see what the comments I missed. What was his biggest client? His biggest client, I think, is going to be a conference in Paris coming up. I want a freelancer in Manitoba. Mike, is there anything else going on in Manitoba? No, I shouldn't joke about that. Anyway, what else we got here? T-Dot, yes, in the Toronto. For those of you not from the GTA area, T-Dot refers to the Greater Toronto area. Nope. No. All right, but anyway, that's all I got for you tonight. We're going to be live tomorrow night. We'll have Pedro Garcia, the crypto chart analyst, on here tomorrow night. Don't know if I'll have a guest, but you never know. We never know. The excitement in these shows are so great that I could have the best guests. I could have Donald Trump on. I could have Joe Biden on. Just using those words to get that algorithm to pick them up. But anyway, as they say, that's all I've got for you today. I'll see you tomorrow, so be there.